Heyo.
Thanks, Cash App, for making the attendees list this time. Reminder to everybody to sign in. And if you have anything to discuss, put it under the RFC standing item. I'll fix the bullets. All right, let's get started. And if anybody has anything else they want to add under there after we do RFC review, feel free to during the meeting. Can everybody hear me? Cool. So I'm going to share my screen. Everybody see that? Cool. Re-add template file deleted in error. First thing, this is just adding the template back. I don't think we need to vote on this. It's just a logistical thing. Yeah, cool. Add builder subteam RFC. Does this need any action? Do we want to talk about this time? I guess, Emily, do you know if Ben has seen this, or do you have thoughts on it from the Java side?
Oh, sorry, I'm muted. I don't know if Ben has seen this. I don't have thoughts in particular.
Well, I think the big thing to point out here is 2 maintainers, one from the Java side. Something to think about. I guess, Ryan, you open this one. Any comments this time, or just waiting for review? You're muted if hey, Ryan, any comments on this one? Sorry.
I was not even here for, as soon as I turned my video on, I only just now sat down at my desk. So I have no idea what the question is.
Got it. It's just any comments on the builders RFC?
Yeah, I was actually in the process of pinging Emily in the background to tell her that I was told that I have to pick maintainers. So I was able to talk to Frankie ahead of time. We wanted to add Frankie as a maintainer, but I also put Emily's name down. Emily, if you object, you can pick someone else from the Java team.
Someone else from the Java team? Yeah, sure. I'll be happy to do it.
I think there was an open question about whether, for when we were forming a new subteam, should we put the maintainers in the RFC so they go through the approval process with the RFC, or should we do an RFC creating a team and then do a vote afterwards? I think that's where that pick the maintainers thing came from, is like, probably makes sense to just do one thing when we establish the subteam, but I don't know if anybody has an opinion. I kind of wanted to see if anybody had process opinions on that. Just thought it'd be good to default to the easiest thing.
Is there like a, I should probably know the answer to this, but I'll admit that I don't know the rules of Paketo governance very well. How are maintainers chosen? Is there a documented process?
I think it's same as C and D, but the maybe contributors are a little different because it's wider or something. We just vote for the maintainers of the sub team and the other maintainers of the sub team and the steering committee or something like that. I forget.
If it's analogous, then like steering committee would vote on maintainers once a team was created, right?
Look at the thing. But if we're making a new subteam and the steering committee votes on RFCs at the top level repo, it seems silly to vote twice over creating the subteam and the maintainers. And the subteam can't really exist without maintainers anyways. So I figured might as well just get it done in one thing.
Makes sense
Yeah,
to me.
I'm in favor
I don't care how we do
merging. It. Let's merge these two processes together into just one thing.
Sounds good. So this sounds good to me. As long as everybody else is okay with it, I'll probably approve. And Emily, if you can tell Ben to take a look too. Cool.
He's on vacation all week, so he'll be back next week.
Awesome. And these two are drafts, and C and B we don't go over drafts, but we don't have a ton of these, so I'll just ask about them quickly. Proposal to create programming style guide. This is.
Oh yeah, this is in process. It's like very bare bones right now. As I work on it, I'll like keep adding more to this draft. So if you're curious about how this is coming together, you feel free to take a look at it. But until it's in a sort of more existent state, I'll refrain from actually going through it here.
Cool. Are you looking for feedback while it's in draft mode, or are you just want to get it out there so people can read it early?
Probably more like the latter. But if, as we sit here right now, you have like somebody has like really strong opinions about what should or shouldn't show up in such a style guide, I'd love to hear from you.
I can send you some stuff we've used for the program before around Go and Shell. It's mostly stuff from Google. Sure, yeah. If you're interested.
Sure.
Just want some inspiration. Cool. And then this next one, contributor guide and support materials from Tim. Anything can help you with on this one this week?
No, I was out last week, so I think it's just to continue this work and like put the finishing touches on this, which should be happening soon. So
cool. All right. That's all RFCs this week. So So do we have, I think we got one more agenda item. The Paketo Javadocs look great. Awesome.
Yeah, I was just looking at that, Emily, and if y'all haven't seen, Emily put a PR with the Javadocs Java native image. I think it's really cool, 2 new sections around like configuring the build packs and stuff like that. I had a couple comments on there, but just wondering if like we're fine to merge just once that's approved, or do you want like Ben to take a look at it or not? Because we're also trying to just make one final pass through of the content on our end and just get this stuff merged.
I'll speak for Ben here because he's out. We'll see if he agrees with me later. But I think we could, I'm fine with the content and we can merge it because there's no, you know, we can always change things later, right? If we find small inaccuracies. There were a couple things that I had threatened to put in the common docs when I was talking to Forrest, including some concepts like process types and stuff like that that didn't end up in there for 2 reasons. Number 1, because it was taking me way too long to finish. And number 2, because I think some of those things could be in the CMB docs and we can link out. So I just wanted to give everyone a heads up on that as well.
Awesome, sounds good.
All right. And that is the end of our agenda this week. Anything else anybody want to chat about? Any of the RFCs in the language, individual language repos that are worth bringing up with the larger group for feedback? Anything like that? Should we be listing all the RFCs and all the languages during this meeting too? Probably not, but maybe just by request.
We've got open time. I have a random thought
Sure.
that I wanted to discuss with someone. Right now, I ran into this when I was documenting the native image build pack, which runs on Tiny as well, the Java native image build pack. And in that build pack, like the Java build pack, we include the Procfile build pack. But Procfiles can't be used to set direct processes. They can only be used to set bash processes. So the fact that that build pack says it can run on Tiny in some ways is a lie, which brought up an interesting question. Like, what do we do about sort of components in larger build packs that have a run on a smaller set of stacks than the rest of the group? In this case, it's optional. But I think we can't, if we wanted to update that to truly reflect the set of stacks it could run on.
Can I ask maybe a naive question, which is, what about the Procfile build pack makes it so that it cannot run on a stack that doesn't have bash? Like, what about it is like enforcing its like process needing to run on bash? Like, could you not just like detect that you're on Tiny and in that case set direct to true?
I think the format of a Procfile right now doesn't provide a way to tokenize things. And if you're setting a direct process, you want to be very clear about like what the exact args and like the n-args to your exec are. And there's no way to express that in the format. So right now, in some ways, Procfiles are pretty limited now that we have args for bash processes as well. You can only use it in the modes where you have a single script that can't have arguments appended to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You don't want to get into like bash string parsing to figure out what the individual arguments are so that you can pass something that it actually considers to be valid.
Yeah, I'm not sure that doing bash string parsing makes sense if you're not going to run it with bash. It's sort of like...
Sure.
I do think maybe we should redesign what a Procfile is for a world where, so we can express all of our new CMB concepts. That might be the thing to do in the end. And for now, I guess we can just say it runs on Tiny. And I guess if someone puts exactly, we could just not use it in that case or something, because I think we'd have to, but the other option is just pull it out of the Java build pack, but keep it in the group on the base builder, but not the Tiny builder.
I'm curious about the more general problem. It's like you have a combination of build packs that run on, it's like Tiny and base, and you have a Procfile at the end that that just runs on base, right? And the Procfile is optional, and you want it to turn off when, you know, the, so there's a, like, there's a way in build packages, I think, to express that a build package is only compatible with a certain subset of stacks, or we stamp the build package with the minimum subset of supported stacks on it or something like that. And so when you package all this up, I don't think the result will work. I don't think you'll be able to create a build package that still works on, you know, if you restrict Procfile to base, you won't be able to create a build package that still works on Tiny. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the problem.
Could you create 2 build packages and just use 2 separate orders? I think that's the...
I feel like that's, you know, there's a couple different workarounds here. And I'm bringing this up because there's no workaround. It feels like an interesting problem, though, where you want to express, like, I want to say I use Paketo's Java opinions, and I don't want to have to build, like, the name of the stack into the name of the build pack so that people use different ones in different situations.
I could see two different upstream RFCs in C and D to get around this. One is like optional build packs if the stack ID doesn't match, just are removed, but the build package is still allowed, but they have to be optional. Or because optional is just a shorthand for listing multiple groups, right? If there's any group combination that's possible for a stack, then we allow the stack and remove all the other group combinations that aren't. If we really wanted to fix the problem upstream and make it so you could have build packages that were maximally portable, right, where you didn't have to duplicate the build package, both those seem like really reasonable things to do in the API if we need them. And then until then, though, we did get any stack approved, and Procfile might be a good, you know, any stack, and then it just fails if there's no shell or if there's no bash.
That seems better than it explicitly saying it supports Tiny and then failing on Tiny.
I don't know if any stack has made it through the to the Pack CLI yet, though.
Yeah, just throwing that out there, food for thought. The other thing I was thinking about related is I was wondering if we should take some of the really generic build packs like Procfile, and we have ones that let users apply arbitrary labels and arbitrary environment variables that we've included in the Java build pack, and make a meta build pack that's basically just a grab bag of Paketo common configuration, but then would make it easy for non-Java subteams. If you wanted to consume these, you could just put that meta build pack in your group, and then if we wanted to, you know, add something else that is very generic, you could just get it for free as you consume updates.
So this meta build pack would just have like a single group ordering with all optional build packs.
Yeah.
So that way we wouldn't have to add, like, say, image labels and Procfile separately as optional in our groups. We could just say, like, you know, extra config or whatever.
Yeah, Paketo general config. And then we would know that all of the language family build packs had some of the same general config as well. That was a thought I had today. Maybe I'll write an RFC if that doesn't sound crazy to people.
The build pack makes sense there too, or?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Is there any weird stuff with versioning in that? If all those things are versioned together, and then you have to bump the meta build pack version and consume it, like, does that create complexity? I don't know what pipelines look like these days, but just thinking about if it's more work than consuming them directly. I guess it's not.
It'd be slightly more work, and we'd have to release it before, like right now, at least to release a Java build pack, we release each component and then release the meta build pack. This would be we would release some components and release a meta build pack, then release another meta build pack. So for us, that's an extra step, but might be worth it for downstream consumers.
Cool.
Would that same thing work for like APM build packs? Say like Google Stackdriver or some other stuff?
I was thinking that too. Right now, our APM build packs only work with Node.js and Java. So if you put it in general, I guess it could opt out in other language family groups, but it's feels a little bit weirder to include it places it couldn't work.
Maybe someday
Got
when,
it.
Someday we support the whole world.
yeah, then it's just one APM build pack you can put on there. If we got pretty close to that, and the ones that didn't work didn't and just opted out, right? Then that could be a later architectural optimization, especially if the APMs are maintained, like if the integration point is closer to the Java side, right? You can just provide a, here, this works, ship it in the Tansy version thing.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything else on that? I actually had one more question for people. One thing that's happening upstream is Dan, who was on the Paketo team before, is proposing a RFC for offline build packages to kind of make it easier to do that cached thing where we have cached versions and uncached versions. It's a pretty controversial RFC. There's a lot of interesting back and forth, a lot of strong opinions. I think most recently, I'm kind of the last holdout on the ability to reuse layers from the sort of build packages that, like, so you have a Ruby layer. We could, in the RFC, we could have it so that the Ruby layer in the build package is just exactly the same layer that goes into the application and then follows through into the application. I'm worried that if we don't do that kind of optimization, that later when we want to do it, it's going to be a big change for people. But I'm pretty tempted to just say, like, it doesn't seem like we have a big use case for it now, so let's proceed without it. But I wanted to bring it up to this group just to see if people felt like that change would be a large change later, and to kind of go into more detail, because I don't think that was a very good explanation. It's like we could have a dependency layer, like the Ruby coming that we build from the on the core dep subteam could be literally an image layer that we put into the build package, or you could build an artifact that gets turned into an image layer that in the build package looks exactly like the layer that would end up in the application, right? And then that layer could, without any changes, just follow through into the final app image, without the path changing in a very fast build. But it's kind of complicated to make that work. And some of the benefits, as Emily has pointed out, are like, once it's built once for an application on a rebuild, it's not going to change anyways, right? So it's pretty tempting to drop that feature and have it so that the offline build package support just recovers, sort of double compressed, versions of the dependencies, like, compressed in a layer and compressed as an archive in the image, and kind of recover them out into the, application image. Just wondering if anybody had thoughts over whether it's worth keeping the idea that we could just preserve the underlying image, or if that made any sense at all to people. My explanation. Seems like not too many thoughts on it. Well, it's something we'll probably talk about in the CNB working group meetings quite a bit in the next week or so. So if people have thoughts, it's a good place to chat about it. Just wanted to make people aware here that it'll have a pretty big effect on how you make and put dependencies in build packs in the end, in the offline case. So I want to make sure we have good consensus for everybody who's going to use it. Cool. All right. Unless there's anything else. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.